Hello, I'm James Barth from Rock Hard 4x4. I want to talk to you a little bit about our tube-style sliders that we build. Now, a couple of things that keeps us separate from other manufacturers in the industry is the thickness of metal of which we use when we build our sliders. Our tube-style sliders mount to more locations than any others. They're a lot of times 30% thicker. They're built here in the United States, and I'll show you some of the differences. These longer areas here mount to the body bolts of where your body and your frame come together. Now, a lot of customers ask, can we mount to the body and the frame? You can't, because you have to have a give there so that when the vehicle flex, you don't tear up and actually break spot welds and stuff in the lower sections of your bodies. So what we've done is we've mounted to the body bolt area and into the lower section of the tub, which are into factory holes also, and into the pinch weld. What this develops for us is it creates an area that we're not just mounting to the pinch weld, but we're mounting to further back, and that gives us the stability of going this way. One other thing that we use is all of our bracketry. These lower brackets are made 1/4 inch. These thicker brackets that go to the body mounts are made of 3/8 material. The tubes are all 120 wall material. The same out here. A lot of the industry is using 70 and 90 thousandths material. And that's what sets us apart, is the thickness of material, the quality of the product of which you're receiving. The Rock Hard 4x4 sliders are available in a tube-up style and a tube-down style. Yes, on some of the JLs and some of the others where they're not as long as the Gladiator example that we have here in front of us, have a flat plate available. It does come with the hardware needed to install. You have your bolts that go to the lower sections, the nuts that go on the pinch weld with these washers here. These are going to go on the inside of the pinch weld going here with the nuts. That kind of sandwiches it all together there. We do offer the body bolts that come with it. Now, some customers will use your factory body bolts on like the JLs and the JKs, and even on the Gladiators. There's a washer that you can take off to allow for the different thicknesses of our 3/8 plates here. So we have some customers that want to utilize their factory hardware. If you don't, they do come in the kit. We're going to go ahead and show how to install this now. We're going to remove the factory slider off of the JL. This happens to be a Rubicon that come with a slider on it. As you'll see, on the pinch welds, we do run into sometimes where the customer realize, when they're looking at their own Jeep, where the pinch weld, where there's the seams from the outer portion of the body and the lower section of the body come together. They're already pre-drilled for these holes. Sometimes they're not perfectly lined up, and we do need to run a slight bit through there, but that's not every time. I've ran into it a handful of times. Hopefully on our install here that we'll have a situation like that so we can show you what you do to drill out that hole. The Rock Hard 4x4 sliders are built here in the United States. They come with a nice powder-coated texture that's pretty durable. We put it on really thick as we do it in-house. It does have a slight 20% texture, which is kind of the same texturing that you have in a lot of the trim that's on your Jeep. And so we try to match that when we do our powder coat. Let's get started on the install. We're using a 13mm socket here to remove the bolts that hold the ruby rails to the bottom of the tub. You're going to do this to all the locations on both sides. This will allow the ruby rails to slip off, so you'll be able to put in our Rock Hard 4x4 rails. Now you'll see where the factory rail goes through the pinch weld here also. Go ahead and use a 10mm wrench. A ratchet wrench makes really quick work of this. Remove all the nuts. Now that we've went ahead and removed the bolts on the pinch weld and in the lower portion of the tub, we're going to go ahead and remove these factory rails. For the install of this rock slider, I want to show you a little bit as far as where the hardware goes. These long braces here are the washers after you've put it on the Jeep for the pinch weld. Now, you have some little rectangular ones. These go on the front set of mounting bolts on the pinch weld on either a JL or a JT, because the body has a ripple in it and we can't use the long plate. We have to use the smaller ones here. We also offer body bolts that come with it. You can use your factory ones if you would like. You just need to take the washers off of them. It does come with the bolts going into the lower section of the tub for mounting here. Let's go ahead and get the install started. Since we've removed the factory Rubicon rail, it opened up our mounting areas into the pinch weld and also into the lower tub section. We do need to remove the body bolts here. There's 3 on each side on a 4-door. On a 2-door, there's 2 on each side. You're going to do that with an 18mm socket and a long-handled ratchet. Now, some customers will hit them with an air gun to do this. I prefer to do them with a long-handled ratchet or a breaker bar. Once you know that you've gotten it all the way out, sometimes the plastic clip that is on the top of the body mount will hold it in place. Just pull it down and it'll come out. Luckily, we ended up with a couple of bolts that weren't perfectly lined up on the pinch weld. We went ahead and just drilled them out. Now we're going to go ahead and slide the slider over the pinch welds and up. Sometimes it helps if you go in at a little bit of an angle. When you're installing this rocker, you want to bring it up a little bit of an angle on the outside, then line up your pinch weld bolts and slide it into place. Now we'll go ahead and start the hardware on the pinch weld with the long plates in the back areas and the short plates in the front, and the body bolts going into the bottom of the body and our larger body bolts here. You can reuse your factory hardware if you want, or you can use the Rockhard 4x4 supplied hardware. We're going to go ahead and install the rectangular plate and the nut in the front areas. Just like that. We're leaving all hardware loose at this time. You will be tightening these using a 13mm wrench. Now we're going to go ahead and thread the bolts with the washer on them into the lower body area. You will also be tightening these using a 13mm also. We're going to go ahead and install the body mount bolts. We're using the Rockhard 4x4 supplied hardware. You can also reuse your factory. When tightening the slider, you want to tighten the pinch weld first. That makes sure the slider is all the way inward before you tighten the lower body bolts. So you're going to use a 13mm wrench here, 13mm socket here, and if you're using the factory hardware, it would be a 18mm. If you're using the Rockhard 4x4 supplied hardware, it will be a 19mm socket. Go ahead and tighten down the sliders and repeat for the other side.